Light of Lost Souls by Nigel Findley. What the living forget, the dead remember forever. Light of Lost Souls is an AD&D game scenario for 3 to 6 characters of 2nd to 4th level. Characters should be well equipped with at least one party member armed with silver or magical weapons. If a cleric is present in the party, it is recommended that he not at first have an exorcise spell available. Adventure background. While traveling north along the shore of a bay late in the afternoon, the PCs see an old run-down lighthouse far out on a rocky headland. As the party nears the headland, lowering clouds blow in from offshore, and a vicious storm lashes the coast with high winds, lightning, and heavy rain. Because of the direction of the wind, the headland promises some protection from the violence of the storm. As the PCs approach, they see a shallow cave that can provide even more shelter. In the strobe-like flashes of the lightning, they can see that the cave, a mere indentation in the rock, extends back no more than 5 or 6 feet and is totally empty. The sandy floor is dry, and the overhanging lip should keep out most of the rain. Although there is no room to light a fire, a night in the cave promises to be infinitely more comfortable than a night out in the deluge. For the Dungeon Master. One look at the bay explains why the lighthouse is disused. While the bay was once an excellent natural harbor, the flow of a large river has filled it with silt, turning much of the bay into a mud flat. Near the river mouth are the decayed, deserted remnants of Ravenglass, once a bustling port village. When the bay silted up and the harbor became unusable, the shipping trade went elsewhere, and the village quickly became a ghost town. For the last 35 years it has been totally deserted, except for the many ravens that gave the town its name. In the better days of Ravenglass, the lighthouse, tended by a human named Daneland, was vital for the safety of shipping. When one of the frequent storms blew up, it was only the lighthouse beacon that kept incoming ships from wrecking themselves on the rocky headland. At first, Daneland took his great responsibilities seriously, but as the years went by, the loneliness began to affect him, and he took heavily to drink. One stormy night, Daneland was so drunk he was unable to climb the stairs to light the beacon. Without the light to guide him, the captain of an incoming ship misjudged the entrance to the bay. The ship floundered on the rocks and went down with all hands. In the morning, when Daneland found out what had happened, he was overcome with remorse. Even the discovery that the sunken ship, the Barracuda, was a smuggling vessel and its half-elven captain, a brutal pirate, did nothing to ease Daneland's guilt. He was immediately replaced as lighthouse keeper, but the bottle helped to ease his pain. He took to drinking even more, and soon he died, a drunken, broken madman. By chance, the cave in which the party is sheltered from the storm is the exact spot where Daneland finally drank himself to death. Also by chance, this night is the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the Barracuda. Daneland. In his last days, Daneland became insanely obsessed by the belief that he could somehow set everything right again and atone for his own guilt, if only he could light the beacon for one more night. For obvious reasons, the new keeper would not let Daneland anywhere near the lighthouse. When Daneland finally died, his monomania continued beyond the grave. Daneland has become a haunt, and an insane haunt at that. His soul trapped forever in the cave until he can fulfill his last wish. 2 hours after sunset, Daneland's haunt manifests itself within the cave, choosing one member of the party to attack, probably with surprise. His first choice is a human male, but he may also attack, in order of preference, a human female, a half-elf, or any other demi-human. If he successfully possesses his chosen victim, Daneland runs out into the storm to the lighthouse and up the stairs. When he reaches the beacon room, he uses the scrap wood and rotting furniture there to kindle a fire behind the lenses. If he is successful, he crouches in the ruined structure, watching to the west for the ship he expects to sail by. He explains to anyone who will listen that he must keep the beacon going to save the souls aboard the ship. Nothing will persuade him to leave. Daneland will be freed from his haunt form when he has successfully spent an entire night in the possessed body in the lighthouse after having lit the beacon fire. The touch of sunlight on the possessed victim on the following day will expel the haunt. Daneland will never reappear. However, casting out the haunt before dawn by exorcism or by slaying the character possessed by the haunt, or otherwise preventing it from fulfilling its goal, will cause it to reappear the following year on the same anniversary date, again attempting to light the beacon for one full night. If he is prevented from reaching his goal, Daneland babbles monomaniacally about how he must kindle the beacon or the Barracuda will run aground and all its crew will be lost. This is a chance for the DM to really play it up. Daneland does not listen to reason or logic, and explanations about the bay being silted up do not deter him. 2.5 hours after sunset, the exact time that the Barracuda went down, a ship's bell is heard from far off the shore to the west, although nothing can be seen through the storm. This occurs whether or not Daneland's haunt has been successful in lighting the beacon. The crew of the Barracuda. Bound to this plane by their own indomitable will, and in some strange way by Daneland's obsession with bringing them back, Captain Talgal Gilad and 6 members of his crew have returned this night to play out the last act of the drama of the Barracuda. Drowned when their ship foundered, the smugglers became Hecubas. Now they have returned to visit their revenge on the one responsible for their deaths. They can sense Daneland's presence, or that of his haunt, and know exactly where he is. Since becoming undead, they have patiently been digging their way up from the silt-buried hulk of the Barracuda to the surface. Tonight, they are free. Anyone who looks west towards the ocean, 15 minutes after the ship's bell sounds, sees 7 figures walking out of the waves and across the mud flat towards the lighthouse. The Hecubas have used their polymorph self-powers to take on the forms they had in life. Captain Talgal Gilad is the most striking, a dark, roguish, handsome man of medium height who appears to be in his mid-30s. The men never smile, and their eyes are lifeless and dark. The Hecuba's behavior now depends on what has happened to Daneland. 1. If Daneland has successfully possessed his victim and is now within the lighthouse, the Hecubas do everything in their power to enter the lighthouse and confront a terrified Daneland. They then revert to their true forms and tear his possessed victim's body asunder. If they succeed in this, the Hecubas turn and attack the rest of the party, but not before they kill Daneland. If they are triumphant against the PCs, or if the PCs flee, the Hecubas leave for the deserted town of Ravenglass, which they will haunt. If handled well by the DM, the Hecubas' siege of the lighthouse can become a scene straight out of a horror movie. 2. If Daneland has possessed his victim, but has been prevented from reaching the lighthouse, the Hecubas track him until they can confront and attack him as above. Once the possessed victim is slain, the Hecubas then head for Ravenglass, attempting to slay every living being they meet. 3. If Daneland has been unsuccessful in possessing his victim, or if he has been expelled from the victim's body, by a hold person spell for example, the Hecubas sense Daneland's presence in the sandy cave. They do everything in their power to obtain fire, sensing that fire is harmful to Daneland's current form, and attempt to burn the haunt to destroy it. Once this is done, the Hecubas move on to Ravenglass. This adventure should take on a claustrophobic feel with great tension and horror. Unlike Daneland, the marauding Hecubas do not vanish at dawn. They will remain in the area for years until destroyed. The fate of the non-possessed PCs is irrelevant to them until their score with the former lighthouse keeper is settled. Being only semi-intelligent creatures in their unliving state, the Hecubas have no sense of subtlety, except for their use of their polymorph self-powers. If the Hecubas are vanquished, the party may find some valuable possessions on the body of Galgilad. A gold chain and medallion worth 100 gold pieces, an amethyst-encrusted gold ring worth 500 gold pieces, and a plain gold ring worth 25 gold pieces. Keys to maps. Ravenglass Bay map. 1. Town of Ravenglass. The town is deserted and has been for 35 years. Those buildings left standing are decrepit and decayed, and nothing of value remains. About 20 small wooden buildings, each with 2 to 5 rooms, remain standing. 2. Daneland's Cave. See the description under Adventure Background. 3. The Lighthouse. Built of weathered granite, it stands 75 feet tall. The one-story living quarters attached to the tower are 10 feet tall. Lighthouse map. 3A. Ground floor. Most of the interior of the lighthouse is empty space. The narrow spiral staircase rises steeply, making almost one complete turn before reaching the beacon room itself. The staircase has no guardrail, and the center of the spiral is open. The lower level rises 65 feet to its ceiling, the floor of the beacon room above. 3B and 3C, living quarters. Both rooms are completely empty. 3D, beacon room. The ceiling here is 8 feet high. There is no guardrail around the opening of the stairwell. Empty windows encircle the entire room, starting 4 feet above the floor and reaching to the ceiling, leaving this room open to the elements. In the center of the room is the beacon light itself. a shallow iron crucible faced on the north, east, and west by rough-hewn lenses of quartz. If a fire is kindled in the crucible, these lenses intensify the light to make it visible for several miles. The room is otherwise empty except for some scraps of wood from a shattered crate and a broken wooden chair. Encounters. If the player characters remain in the Ravenglass Bay area long enough to warrant random encounters, the DM can use the following table, developing details on the monsters according to the AD&D game's hardbound manuals. Concluding the adventure. This adventure has few major effects on any other part of the greater world at large. It is simply the final act in a tragic episode into which the PCs unknowingly wandered, and from which they must escape. Unless destroyed, the Hecuvas will continue to plague the Bay Area, preying upon the few wayfarers who happen upon them. Similarly, without an exorcise spell, Daneland the Haunt will continue to reappear every year on this date, trying to light the lighthouse fires. On the same night, the Hecuvas will attempt to destroy Daneland, an endless quest, since Daneland merely reforms to appear the following year. There is, of course, the possibility the PCs will want to look for the remains of the Barracuda in hopes of finding treasure. Given that the ship is now buried under 60 feet of mud, this might be a vain hope, but the DM should consider this possibility if the players seem determined to have the PCs hunt anyway.